Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this, the Labour Victory Fund. I'll explain what that is in a minute and what we're here to do. The format is we're going to have a discussion in here, but it's very hot. It's supposed to be quite discursive. So we have a reception immediately afterwards, which is at the latest 6 p.m. It can be earlier. We're just literally going outside, where there's wine, etc., generously donated by Ibrahim and SME for Labour. So we can move out there soon as, but I'm afraid it is a captive audience once the doors close. So if you haven't got a drink, more for you. So why are we here? So my name's Kevin McKeever. I'm the director of the Labour Victory Fund. We've just been established. Our purpose is to help candidates in marginal parliamentary seats get elected. We're giving campaign grants in order to, obviously help with materials, with time. We also have a panel of advisors who come from PR and politics to help gain maximum impact for that. So the idea is about, yes, giving money, but giving expertise as well. Our chair unfortunately can't be here, Peter Mandelson, mainly because Peter would never sit in a room like this at this point in conference. He sends his apologies and he's already back in London, which is exactly where we need him for this sort of thing. Sorry, what's that?
One of my CLP keen to come.
Okay, right, so I'll do introductions. Basically, we're going to have 3 minutes from each speaker talking a bit about their experience and about sort of their insights into campaigning, and we'll happily take contributions from the floor. There's some eminently qualified people, but everybody actually eminently qualified around us. And I'll just start by saying why we decided to found the fund, which is I was a parliamentary candidate in 2015 and 17. We don't really talk about that one, in Northampton South, and we did a lot of fundraising, a lot of generous support from our colleagues in the trade union movement. But it was tough. The party's got a very difficult job centrally, and they're busy fundraising for the central effort and for organisers. And so we realised in discussion with the fundraising team at the party, there was a place for a complementary organisation to help give funds and expertise. So we're about to announce, literally doing it now, our first 10 grants of £5,000. They're not available yet because they're currently going through due diligence and by a wonderful director of governance at the back, Jack Falkingham. So I'm able to help give out the money, and then Jack will tell you can't have it. So that's how it's going to go. So, there we are. So, to start, I'll do the names and we'll kick in. We've got Kim McGuinness, the wonderful Kim McGuinness, who is the Police and Crime Commissioner for Northumbria. And the relevance is going to be very clear when she starts talking. She's very, very capable. We've got Catherine Atkinson, who has just been selected in Derby North, a seat we need to win. We've got James, what's his name? James Frith, the former member, I have to look now because you've got me paranoid. The former member of Parliament for Bury North, and now our candidate again. So James ran a fantastic campaign in 2015 and then 17, was it? And then won it, and then he's going to win it back again. James and I were actually trainee organisers in 2005 election.
Yeah.
So we know what it's like at the sharp bend. So if anybody in here is working for James or has worked for James, then he knows exactly what it's like, so don't let him get away with any shit. And then finally with Emily Darlington, who's running in Milton Keynes South. Previously ran confusingly for me in Milton Keynes North in 2015. I'm getting my Norths and Souths confused. But you've got North and South as well, haven't you? So, without further ado, Kim, talk to us about organising to win.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin. And actually, first of all, let me just say thank you to Kevin and the team, Peter, for bringing the Victory Fund to life. Because actually, as someone who has at times struggled to fundraise, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a minute, this is exactly what we need, because we are, I think, in the midst of it. We're in a conference that feels so incredibly positive. It feels very much like we're heading for victory. I'm going to say that a lot. It feels like we're winning. We just had an absolutely outstanding speech by the leader. We're heading in the right direction. But so many of us know, and some of the panel know, that doesn't necessarily mean those marginal seats will no longer be marginal. We're still going to have to fight for every single vote.
Yep.
And it's difficult, it's hard work, and it's expensive. So I am a Police and Crime Commissioner. I cover 16 constituencies in the northeast of England, 6 local authorities. It will shock everybody to know that I do not want to be an MP. And I'm kind of here to in a way, to put forward the argument for why we also need to work on these regionally elected roles like PCCs and mayors, because first of all, we are Labour in power. We are in power in our areas. We are delivering already aspects of the manifesto. And what I'm delighted to say is that the front bench are proactively in contact with us, saying, what are we doing well and how do we reflect that in our manifesto so that we can get our parliamentary candidates across the line? Because let's be honest, I might be in power in the northeast of England, but by God, I need a Labour government to really make the change that I want to make.
Yeah.
And so for me, what I find in the situation that we're in the northeast, where we've got a Labour PCC, I'm not going to speak for Andy Burnham or the other Metro mayors, but I know that it's the same. Every single day we get out of bed to counteract the Tory cuts, to counteract the damage that 12 years of Tory austerity has essentially delivered in different parts of the country, and particularly in my area in the northeast, which is the furthest away from London. And running a campaign across 16 constituencies is incredibly difficult. I won on a by-election, and actually back in 2019 you could argue that it was marginal. I came in with a majority of only 6,000, which, you know, when you're talking about that many people, that's not very big. But what we managed to do is to harness the convening power of those 16 CLPs to work together on both a joint narrative and on joint campaigning, to work together on joint fundraising, on trying to do different events and trying to draw together our region. And we delivered a 66,000 majority in 2021. And so it shows it can be done. And we all know that the difference between 2019 and 2021 was about more than our campaigning. However, I think it's important to say that what we need to be doing is taking those messages from Labour in power where we are, and so some of those parliamentary constituencies that are marginals will have Labour councils within them. You may have a Labour mayor, you may have a Labour PCC, taking the wins and making sure that we claim them together, because let's be honest, I don't own the victories in my area, we own them together as the Labour Party. That's kind of the point of our movement. And then secondly, working together to cover as much ground as physically possible, taking resources and sharing them across our region, using the opportunities to come together to do those joint fundraising events and to make our money stretch further and to make our message go further. And so I'm really passionate about this. I think we've got a real opportunity, and I think conversations like this, which, you know, it is started and formed of the fund, but the reality is conversations like this are what will galvanise us to work together and to have the new ideas, to think how do we harness our collective power and make sure we get these marginal constituencies in the so-called red wall and beyond back to Labour, where they belong and where we can start to make a difference. Thank you.
Fantastic, thanks. Just a quick point to make is everyone here is from England, which is because we organised the event. There'd been no parliamentary candidates selected at that point in Wales and Scotland. So this does apply to the whole of Britain, just to be clear. Before I get roasted on Twitter. Right. Sorry?
Are you going to develop something like that for Scotland?
Yes, we will be covering it in Scotland and Wales, but the point with organising this, no one had been selected yet in the everyone was selected in. It's only for London, actually. No, I'm only joking. It's
Right, I'm out.
it's for all of Britain. Yeah, obviously not Northern Ireland. Catherine, shouldn't have said anything now.
Can we turn this off?
I turn that off. Speak to the compliance guy.
We have just had a brilliant speech from Keir Starmer. It was confident, it was funny, it was passionate, and we have all felt that confidence all through conference. And right at the start on Saturday, Keir joked that trickle-down economics was taking the piss. But we all know that it won't deliver for the country. What it will deliver for is donation to the Conservative Party. Truss is banking on getting a cut from those bankers' bonuses. There'll be more tickets to the black and white ball, maybe even bids in the auction for cheese and wine, as long as that cheese isn't imported. And under Johnson, we had a government that was morally bankrupt. Under Truss, literally bankrupt. And she did say she'd hit the ground from day one. She didn't say the pound would hit the ground. But while Tories do know that their budget will leave the coffers of the country and family budgets empty, they are expecting their coffers to be full. And I don't want to ruin the mood. We're ahead in the polls. We are having a fantastic, jubilant conference, and we have got so many plans to transform people's lives. But I have been here before, and I have seen too many of my friends in our region who were candidates like me beaten by some really, really terrible MPs. In Ashfield, my friend Natalie Fleet was beaten by Lee Anderson. Leonie Mathers in Sherwood was beaten by Mark Spencer. I could go on. And when I was a candidate, I heard time and time again, I really want to see you as an MP, but I can't risk Labour getting into government. And I am sick of losing. And this conference feels like we are ready to win.
Yeah.
In Derby North, where I've now been selected, we are already taking steps in the right direction. We won 3 more council seats this summer. But my intro leaflet, when I was selected, was delayed because we had minus £2,000 in our campaign account. And it's really hard to turn Derby North red when you are in the red. When I was a candidate, I've done it before, we've all done it before, but when I was a candidate in Area Washington in 2015, 17 and 19, we raised tens of thousands of pounds. When up to 2015, I raised more than £43,000, and we did all sorts of things. And I look forward to talking more about everyone's ideas for fundraising. But it is really essential that candidates get resources, money early, because it's really hard to make a difference in the last few days of a campaign. And for us to be visible, professional, winning candidates, we do need resources. And I am so grateful to Kevin and the whole team and all of you that will be working with candidates to ensure that that happens.
So, thank you, Kevin. Kim's just found out it's for parliamentary seats only, so she's leaving. She's got another event, and she's coming back. Before we move on to James, one thing, part of the inspiration for this was the great Michael Ashcroft, former Tory chairman. Yeah, you're thinking, what's he doing now? So Michael Ashcroft set up the Ashcroft Fund for Tory candidates, and he said it was based on his experience of giving money in 2005 to Tory candidates. And when he kind of got the reports back, he said it was the same poor content on glossy paper and sent first class. So this idea actually comes to the Tories, because sometimes you take the good stuff right and junk the rest. And part of their 2020, just getting the Tories over the line, the coalition, was highly targeted campaign work done on this model, but not as well obviously as we'll do it. And based on the principle that yes, you need the money, but you also need the resources, and you need it early, you need the help. And that's what we're here to do. Over to you.
Thank you, Kevin, and good evening, everybody. I feel very hopeful, and a belief, I think, has spread across conference today with what was a brilliant speech by Keir Starmer. It's felt for a lot of us in constituencies that we've lost, hope to win, in Bury North and elsewhere, that very often, despite our best efforts, what we do locally is undone nationally. And whether that's a leadership that isn't prepared to talk up the successes of a Labour government, or a Labour leadership that hasn't bothered to understand what resonates with everyday life in towns like mine in Bury North. What first attracted me to speak on a panel entitled Victory and Fund, I'll leave you to determine. I hope very much that the finder's fee for the panellists alone is the first 5k. I'm sure we'll be asked to go through the due process, and I hope the due diligence doesn't throw up any reasons not to fund. But look, we meet at a time post-COVID where I think the general public have been shown the ability of the might of the state with the will to do right, to rescue people from illness and to ensure the protection of life. And people should be told that a Labour government, using the full force of its power in government, can do exactly the same on a social and economic and political level. It should not be only when crises hit that we see the benefit of political will, of choices taken by central government to improve the everyday life of people that we're in politics to represent, and the communities that we're from, that we're rooted in, and that we want to serve in government. And so I welcome a victory fund that is determined to fund that effort. But there are a few requests from me, and that is, don't be left with any money in your bank account as a CLP and lose by 105 votes. Okay? I am not from a red wall seat. I am from a marginal constituency, a bellwether constituency, a weather vane. If Bury wins, Britain wins. If Bury loses, more often than not, we're not in government. Only in one instance has that been the case, and that was the 2017 election. So I think it's really important that we understand early on what that funding is going to be, and I say that with total respect for efforts of Kevin and elsewhere, because I'm not interested in simply having a kind of cash sum in the bank that we spend simply on literature as, oh, well, let's put another leaflet out. The Tories spent huge amounts more than us at the last several elections, and they're much better at spending that money, notwithstanding the comments of Ashcroft and the glossy in the first class. In recent elections since then, they've got targeted, they're doing quiet, they're undermining our efforts by going direct on phone calls, direct on social media advertising, and we're left thinking, well, we've got this money and it's for the final 4 weeks of the campaign. If I get funding, I want an organiser. If I get funding, I need help building resource and capacity. And the final thing is, don't run a general election campaign and have no one to show for it afterwards. Not about nothing to show for it. Make sure you have plenty of people to show for your efforts at general election. I'm proud, some of them are in the room, that the people that were attracted to our campaign in Bury North are now serving as councillors, are now leaders in their communities. And come win or lose, the responsibility of this fund and our leadership at local level is to ensure that the legacy of our campaigning builds a Labour Party that's determined to be active as opposed to simply attentive. We are not good enough at mobilising people that are active. And we've got to get away from this idea that being a member of the Labour Party is like being a member of a donate to a foreign land or a Amnesty International membership. We have got to get out there on the doorstep. And so I really encourage any receipt of the funds that we're given goes towards building a lasting legacy in towns like ours. And let's hope that today's speech with Keir, from Keir, is the start of a very short journey now back to government. Thanks.
You can tell, kind of, people say it's a great speech, and it was a great speech, but it's like the kind of the practical, what's the evidence of that? It's like, something in the money markets demonstrate real confidence, say, or lack of confidence in the government. Well, for Keir's speech, the confidence is, several people texted me asking about seats, which they no longer thought weren't winnable 4 hours ago, and now think they do. And that's a great sign as well. It is. Also, several MPs won't be retiring. That's another conversation. Right, straight over to Emily.
Good evening, everyone, and it has been an amazing day at conference, but actually hasn't the whole conference been amazing?
Yeah.
There has been such confidence, not that we think we're absolutely going to win, but there's that confidence that we know what we're about and what we're going out and campaigning for, and the difference we would make to our residents and our constituents right across the country. I wanted to talk a little bit about Milton Keynes because it is a little bit in a different place. Who knows if it's north or south or east or west, because everybody's got us in a different bit. But it is, again, one of those bellwether seats. In 1997, we won both the Milton Keynes seats. In 2005, we lost one. In 2010, we lost the other.
ahead of 2015, we selected our candidates early for both North and South, 3 years. 3-year slog, myself and Andrew. You know Andrew Craig, he stood in Milton Keynes that year. And it was tough. And the reason it's tough is that you are doing everything as the candidate. You try and build a team, but you are the one motivating them all. And the money did come in, but it came in too late.
Yeah, absolutely.
It came in for the short campaign.
Yeah.
And actually, that's when we have spending limits. So I ended my campaign with $5,000 in the account because I couldn't spend the money that came in at the last minute because of our spending limits. That's just ridiculous. The money that's needed to be spent is the money now, actually. And the Tories are really, really good at this. And we can't be complacent. In 2015, both Andrew and I had the BBC predicting that we were going to win. We spent that whole last day, all of polling day, thinking, okay, we can do it, just one last push. And then the polls closed. And we saw the exit polls, and it was devastating. And I never, ever, ever want myself, my team, my residents to feel like that again, ever. So what do the Tories do with all that money they get that leaves them head and shoulders above us in terms of some of their campaigning? We've got the ground force, that's absolutely true. We've got the actual data that we're getting from those conversations, we're having those conversations. But they look professional. All of their material doesn't come off a riser. It looks very professional. It looks like they are ready to do a professional job in government. And that matters. What they also do is thousands and thousands of targeted mails. They don't use our kind of data. In fact, we have better data than they do. But they are much better at targeting their message. But the cost difference between having a hand-delivered, non-addressed leaflet that's the same through everyone's door versus breaking that constituency down into your 10 target groups and having 10 different messages is huge. And that's the bit we can't afford to do. And they, as James said, they also do the same thing on social media. We would be an unstoppable force if we could take the data we collect in those doorstep conversations on top of the other data that we're using in the party to profile our voters and use that to target and have micro messaging to different audiences. We would be unstoppable, and that would stop PPCs across the country waking up thinking they might win and then finding out at the exit poll they'll lose. I can't tell you that we can't afford for that to happen again. And so we've got to rebuild after 2017 and 2019. We've rebuilt the organisation. That's really clear. David Evans was really clear about that. But what we don't have access to is the funding that the Tories have, and therefore we're losing those specialised conversations that we can have with our voters that will get these marginal seats over the line. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Emma. Well, first part's really helpful. So we've heard that we need to raise money early, but what about give it out early, which is why we're here now. Make sure that we can go combat the Tories, go toe-to-toe when it comes to that quality of targeting, of materials, and also let's not make sure that we build capacity as we go. And that was a really good point, James, actually, about, it's a campaign to have a legacy. Hopefully that legacy is a Labour MP, but, it should also be a legacy for the party, which will help improve next time. And also, let's work across boundaries, regionally, and actually something that the Labour Party, particularly in the South and East, with the way in London, the way the boundaries are, work across regional boundaries. Because sometimes actually you've got a marginal seat, but because it's over the regional boundary, you don't get to hear about what they're up to.